January 6th, 2022 meeting of the City of Raleigh Appearance Commission. My name is Corey Bates and I am chair of the commission. The Raleigh Appearance Commission is a public body appointed by the City Council that exercises both advisory and quasi-judicial functions. The Appearance Commission's responsibilities relate to zoning and other land use matters, as well as the visual quality and aesthetic characteristics of the city. We will consider the items on today's agenda in the order in which they appear. First items on today's agenda are requests for design alternates from the city's Unified Development. When hearing design alternates, the Appearance Commission sits as a quasi-judicial body, conducts an evidentiary hearing on the request. That means it's like a court hearing, and state law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this commission must make its decision. When hearing quasi-judicial matters, the Appearance Commission has 9 regular members and 6 alternate members. The standard the applicant must meet to be granted the request is set forth in the UDO. The commission hears and considers evidence presented at the hearing and applies the standards when making its decision. The commission must base its decision upon competent material, substantial evidence presented at the hearing. Since today's meeting will be conducted remotely, in addition to the general quasi-judicial rules, today's evidentiary hearing will be conducted in accordance with the state statutes that allow for remote evidentiary hearing during the current COVID-19 states of emergency. For the convenience of those participating today, I'm going to conduct today's remote evidentiary hearing. First of all, witnesses must be sworn in. Because of the remote format, individuals who signed up to speak, as well as city staff participants, have already been signed written oath form, which will be reaffirmed on the record as they testify today. Participants have also already provided written consent on today's remote. We'll begin with staff presentation. A staff member from the planning department will introduce the request. Since design alternates are transportation related, a staff member from the transportation department is also present and available to provide additional information or to answer questions as needed. Following staff's presentation, the applicant will then be acknowledged to present their case and witnesses. The commission will acknowledge the attorney or applicant for each case first as a point person for the applicant. Following the applicant, anyone else who signed up to participate in support or opposition to the request will be given the opportunity to speak. The applicant will be given the opportunity for cross-examination as well as rebuttal and closing statement. If testimony is complete, we will close the evidentiary hearing and the commission will deliberate and vote on the case. Following the meeting, the commission's decision will be prepared with written findings of fact and conclusions of law. The decision will be incorporated into the meeting minutes and will be adopted at the same time meeting minutes are adopted. Now I'll go ahead and conduct the evidentiary hearing on today's agenda. So evidentiary hearing number 1 was DA-0022-2021. This was 509 Fenwick Drive and 2800 South Saunders Street. This case has been withdrawn by the applicant. Evidentiary hearing number 2, DA-0024-2021, 200, 206, and 210 South West Street. The attorney for this case has notified staff that they would like to request a continuance until the February 3rd, 2022 meeting. The attorney is present today to make the request on record. Go ahead and let Ms. Molly Stewart. She on the Ms. Molly.
Hi, this is Molly Stewart, Morningstar Law Group. Can I be heard now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Tried that a few times. So, yes, thank you. I would like to confirm that we would like to request continuance of this matter until the February meeting. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ms. Stewart. And with no opposition, this evidentiary hearing will be continued to the Appearance Commission's February 3rd. Okay, evidentiary hearing number 3, DA-0025-2021, 4411 New Bern Avenue. The applicant for this case has also notified staff that they would like to request a continuance until the February 3rd meeting. No opposition. This evidentiary hearing is also continued to the Appearance Commission's February 3rd meeting. All right, so evidentiary hearing number 4, DA-0026-2021, 216 Buck Jones Road. I will go ahead and swear in the staff. Ask them to go ahead and ask staff to give us their presentation. So, I believe, did we get Kevin Kidd on the line yet?
I believe he is on the line. I'll let Justin confirm with maybe a mic check just to make sure we can hear him.
Yes, I believe Kevin Kidd is on. Are you there?
I'm online. Can everyone hear me?
Okay, yes, we can. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Kevin. So, let me go ahead and swear you both in. So, Keegan, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Kevin, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And I will go ahead and turn this over to you, Keegan.
Okay, great. So I'm going to give a pretty brief presentation. At the end, I'll just turn it over to Kevin in case there's any other commentary he'd like to add to the presentation. And then the applicant also has some slides prepared to walk through as well. So give me one moment. I'm just going to pull up my presentation here. Can you all see that okay? Okay, great. So this is a design alternate request relevant to 216 Buck Jones Road. Specifically, it's a request for complete relief from the cross-access requirements set forth in section 835D of the Unified Development Ordinance to not provide cross-access to the property to the northeast, which I will spotlight in a moment. It's that roughly trapezoidal piece that also fronts along Buck Jones in the northeast direction. The project is in relation to a 3-story apartment building. Property is roughly 2.5 acres in size and zoned R10. Here's the zoning of the subject property and the surrounding properties. And here is the the site plan pulled from the specific development plan. As you can see, the apartment building has roughly a L shape. Parking will be provided to the left of the apartment building on this image. And you'll see that to the right is where there will be significant grading and I believe a stormwater detention device, which is part of the reason for this specific request. This image shows the grading that will occur on the site and the exact location of where the request is being made. So that red bubble is kind of highlighting where the cross access would otherwise be required. The applicant has stated that significant grading will need to be done on the site at or near the property line. And while that grading does not currently exempt them from cross access, at the end of the grading process, it will be of a significant slope such to make cross access somewhat infeasible or impractical to that neighboring property, in addition to it being vacant. I did want to note that there are a number of other properties that the subject property abuts, and each of those has a specific exemption from cross access, which are built into the code. So those are objective exemptions that can be evaluated by staff, and they've worked closely with staff to ensure that no other property the cross access does not need to be provided to those properties where an exemption is in place. And I believe they have a slide that will walk you through each of those in case you have a question. So I believe this is just a zoomed in version, again, showing location of where that cross access would otherwise be, and then also its proximity to the stormwater retention device to the northeast. So that concludes my presentation. Did want to put up the standards for the group's benefit in terms of what needs to be satisfied in order to grant the design alternate. First being that it's consistent with The intent of the section does not increase congestion or safety, does not conflict with a approved or built roadway project. And last, that it is deemed reasonable due to one of the following four reasons. Either the existing physical environment creates an inability to comply, that it would not meaningfully improve connectivity, it's not compatible with adjacent uses, or that the burden of compliance is not reasonable given the size of the site or intensity of the development. So at this point, I'm just going to turn it over to Kevin in case he has any other commentary he'd like to add on this specific case.
Thanks, Keegan. Not much. I think you hit everything for there pretty well. The one thing I would add is that there is an existing shared drive that does skirt the subject property. The attorney, the developer, the engineer are well aware, and they've on their plans. If you look at the upper left-hand corner of your screen, you'll see a driveway apron. A little further down, you'll see where they've pulled the retaining wall back. Those kind of things to take into account that and not to inhibit access. Also of note, you will notice to the north, that is a future extension of roadway for the city going forward, so no access was needed there. Keegan noted all those points. It is of note that there was an administrative site review to the east, the adjacent parcel. However, that has not come in. I'm not sure if that's been pulled or whatever, but staff did work with the developer and their representatives and agreed on all the exemptions. So, but I'm here for any other further questions should they arise. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kevin and Keegan. Does anybody from the commission have any questions for staff at this time? All right. Being none, the applicant will now present their evidence and legal arguments in support of the request. A reminder to the applicant, any evidence and arguments must focus on the applicable standards. I will turn it over to Ms. Isabel Maddox, the attorney, to proceed with any presentation. Any witnesses that you will have, happy to swear them in. Just let me know.
Good afternoon. I'm Isabel Maddox. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
I'm here today representing Evergreen Construction Company. And on the line today is Evergreen Vice President Tim Morgan. Also, project engineer Patrick Barbeau of the Timmons Group is on the WebEx today and will be available for questions. So if we go to the next slide, please. The subject property fronts on Buck Jones Road and backs up to the future Western Boulevard expansion. You can see some area back there where the future expansion of Western is envisioned. Evergreen is proposing 56 affordable senior apartments on this site, and we are requesting a design alternate to the requirement that cross access be provided to abutting sites. Next slide, please. As both Keegan and Kevin said, we have gone through and do have exemptions to all of the properties. There are 3 to the west, 1 to the north, and there's actually 2 properties to the east. So 5 of those 6 properties we have exemptions on. We have steep slope conditions to the east. We have the exemption for abutting a controlled access highway for the future Western Boulevard to the north. And to the northeast, we have an exemption because we abut townhouses. So the east line of this property, there's 2 properties abutting. So the top half, there's an exemption. The bottom half, there's not. And that is what we're here for today. It's a small vacant parcel. And we had initially sought an exemption there because of the steep slopes. But the steep slopes, as Keegan, I think, mentioned, don't really exist on the front end, but there will need to be significant grading to get this site flat, so that we will have a steep slope condition on the back end, but that does not qualify for an exemption. And so, you might ask, why would we grade it in a way that would create a steep slope that didn't exist today? And next slide, please. And the answer is that the goal is to get this site as flat as possible, particularly to the rear of the proposed building where an outdoor amenity area is proposed in the back. And this is, as we said, a senior affordable housing apartment building. And we want the back yard area to be flat, so it will allow many activities that might go on in an outdoor amenity area, just gathering. There may be seating, there may be recreational activities back there, but obviously having a relatively flat site is important for any constituents, but it's particularly so for senior residents. And the UDO really does not acknowledge that there's an exemption available when the steep slopes are created after the grading. But they will, we believe, reach a slope in excess of 25%, which is the standard for an exemption, pre-grading. We do think that the design alternate request is reasonable. If you go to the next slide, I'll go to the findings. Actually, yeah, one more. Yes. So the first standard is that it's consistent with the intent of the ordinances. The ordinance here is to provide safe, efficient, convenient access and to reduce traffic congestion. But we say that following necessary grading, topographic challenges will make cross-access difficult. The abutting site is vacant and cross-access would not result in any practical cross-access. Finally, the development proposes affordable senior housing, which increases the challenges of accessibility and security between the sites. So we feel that this would not, if we were to create the cross-access after construction, it would not really be a safe and efficient access. It would be probably dangerous and impractical. Second standard is the approved design alternate does not increase congestion or compromise safety. Here, we think the design alternate will increase the safety for the senior residents, and it will not increase congestion as the adjoining site is vacant. I also did have a conversation today with George Lennon, the owner of the adjoining site, and he was going to try to be on the call, but had a meeting. He didn't think he would be able to get on, and he did say that please express my support for this request. He had tried to do a townhouse development there. Had he done that, we would have an exemption, but he was not able to get it, has not gotten it approved at this point. And I'm not sure whether that's still an ongoing project or not. Back to the design alternate findings. The design alternate does not conflict with any approved or built roadway construction projects. We don't know of any that we have any conflict with. Fourth is reasonable due to one of the following. We think it complies with at least two of these following things. Given the existing physical environment, compliance is not physically possible. And we would respond that given the expected topo challenges following graded, we believe it would be difficult to provide a safe and efficient cross-access. And then the next one is compliance would not meaningfully improve connectivity. Here, we don't think we really have any meaningful connectivity, given that the project is a very small site and it's vacant right now. It probably will be developed as a very low density project. And also that owner owns two other abutting sites abutting to him that it would probably be developed in concert with those, and they would probably have some cross access that would go on in between those other three sites. So we don't think this cross access would provide any meaningful cross access. So we believe we have shown that we do meet the finding requirements. And we believe another thing that should be considered here, that we're providing an excellent community benefit here in providing affordable housing, which as we all know, we desperately need in our community. So thank you for your consideration. Patrick Barbeau, our engineer, is on the line, is available to answer any engineering type questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maddox. So we don't have either Betty Ann Lennon or George Lennon available today to speak?
It looks like George is on the line.
Yes, it's my understanding George signed up, but Betty Ann, I believe, is available because George is maybe delayed in being able to.
Both of us are present.
Okay, well, I'm happy to swear you in if you'd like to add any comments. If you don't have anything else at this time,
I'll be happy to be sworn.
let me go ahead and swear you in. Mr. Lynn, so do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Do you have anything additional at this time to add to Ms. Maddox's?
We agree with Ms. Maddox's summary of the requirements being met. We own 200 Buck Jones Road, which is 14 apartment units with parking, and the adjacent piece at which is triangle shaped at 214 Buck Jones Road, which is an undeveloped vacant lot. We had considered building 4 townhomes on the site, but have not pursued that project. So if it needs cross access, it has access to 200 Buck Jones through that parking lot. And so I see no reason that Evergreen's proposal should not be accepted by the commission.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Also, the 214 lot has a street access, as you will note on the map at the bottom left, and there's access through 200 through that parking lot. So I see no real convenience to be gained by any party by denial of this request by Evergreen. And Evergreen does good work. My son-in-law's mother was in one of their properties off Shelley Road, liked it very much and felt it was a very well-run organization. And we believe that this will be an asset to the neighborhood and to the city.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So I do not see any opponents signed up at this time. So I will go ahead and turn it back over. If you have any last minute comments, Ms. Maddox, otherwise we will go ahead and ask the commission for it if they have any questions.
No, I have no further comments unless you guys have questions.
Okay. So I'll open up for the commission. Are there any questions from the commission for the applicant at this time before I close the hearing? Everybody just getting back from the holidays is still trying to find their feet. All right, being none, I'll go ahead and close the and open it up for deliberation. Anybody like to kick this off?
Seems like a pretty straightforward one to me, and it's nice to have the adjacent property owners here to voice their support. So I don't see any issues.
Thank you, Martha. I agree. Looking through these findings, I don't see any reason not to support this. As they stated, we're really only looking at one side, and that is, again, the way that it will need to be graded for this type of building. There will be substantial grading at some point. Looks like this is the best place for that property line there, which would lead to very tough access connection to that site. It is vacant at this time, very small lot. That would give any substantial benefit to either site. I believe all 4 findings have been comments.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that you just said, Corey. It's got 20 feet of grade change from one side of the site to the other, and it's a pretty small site, so looks like it's going to be balanced in the end. And I agree with everything you said about the findings, and that I think it meets the intent of the code. So I'd be in favor of it.
Whenever you run across a site where they have to put the stormwater detention on the highest portion of the site, you know, there's problems. So yeah, I mean, I think that they're doing a great job with this, and so I'm gonna go ahead and move to approve.
I'll second that.
Second from Chris. Let's go ahead and roll call vote. So Martha?
Yes.
Candace? Andre?
Yes.
Tuttle?
Yes.
Will Gaskins?
Could you hear me?
Who did I get? Did I get Will or did I get Marcus? Are you both yes?
I said yes.
Oh, sorry. I was coughing when you called my name, I think. Yeah, I'm a yes.
Did I? Yes, I did. So that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, I will go ahead and close. I believe that ends our evidentiary hearing for tonight. You have a administrative alternate case. So I will go ahead and open the administrative alternate case. Before we do that, maybe I'll just go ahead and read a little bit about how we do our administrative, since we're kind of combining these both into one meeting. Typically we do these in two separate meetings, but today's meeting will be very similar to our regular meeting. Let's see. For each administrative alternate case, a city staff member will provide a brief introduction. The applicant will then be acknowledged to present their case and have 10 minutes to do so. Speakers for the applicant are asked to provide their name and address for the record. Following the presentation, the commission members will be given an opportunity to ask questions to applicant staff. The commission will then hear from any other participants who would like to speak on the request. When all comments from the applicant, staff, and other participants are complete, the commission chair will bring the item back to the table for deliberation. Commission members will then deliberate on the items to review the findings listed in the applicable sections of the UD. Following deliberation, the commission chair asks for the motion, which will take the form of a recommendation to the planning director for action on the request. The motion can be recommendation for approval, approval with conditions, or denial. The commission may also vote to defer the case to the next regular meeting, typically in order to receive additional information if needed. The commission will then vote. So I will go ahead and turn this over. Let's see. Yeah, I'll go ahead and call the case. So the case is AAD 16-21, 700 South Salisbury Street. I believe Isabel Maddox is the applicant for this one as well. And I will go ahead and turn it over to Egan for the staff presentation.
All right, thank you. Give me one moment. Okay, hopefully everyone can see this presentation. So again, this is an administrative alternate for design request related to 700 South Salisbury Street. So just a little bit of background about the broader project. Located just south of the kind of core downtown area. It's a multi-building development, as you can see from this rendering. It'll include two 20-story mixed-use buildings and also a parking structure with a 4-story residential component wrapped around, totaling about 587 apartments. There'll also be ample commercial space on the ground levels of these buildings, and then a amenity area in the center of the site and along a few of the perimeters of the buildings. So the first component of this request is related to build to, coming from section 348C2. related to the urban general frontage. So it does require a 70% build to along a primary street. And so there's two buildings here that are part of this build to request. The first is Tower 2 on Lot 2, which I'll spotlight in a moment. One of the mixed use buildings. That building will only occupy about 33% of the primary street frontage along Kinley rather than 70%. Also, the apartment building, which will only occupy about 49% of the primary street frontage along Kinley Street rather than the required 70%. So here is a site plan just highlighting the three buildings and then showing that rendering. And so again, this is looking north on the site. You'll see Tower 1 at the top. There are a few points in the presentation where you may see that referred to as the north building. Tower 2 along Salisbury and Kinley, might see that referred to as the south tower or south building. And then that apartment building with the parking deck is in the southwest corner of the site, also along Kinley Street and bordered by the railroad. So the first build to request is for the mixed use tower on the south end of the site. Again, that corner of Salisbury and Kinley. So as you can see, the primary build to, or the principal building will only occupy a portion of the build to area. And they are proposing outdoor amenity area to occupy that other space to meet the total percentage, which is 70%. So when including the outdoor amenity area that they're proposing, it totals to about 75% of that frontage will be occupied either by building or outdoor amenity area. And then lot 3 is the apartment. And so this is the same scenario. About 50% will be occupied by the building, and then roughly 20% will be occupied by outdoor amenity area. And I did just want to show these images again, because I think it does a decent job of showing where that outdoor amenity space will be located, which is on the bottom of this picture along Kinley. You can see that outdoor amenity space. This is that intersection of Salisbury and Kinley, where you can see the planted area at the street. And then as you sort of move along Kinley, that specific outdoor amenity area fronting that south tower and also the apartment building. So these are the findings related to Build 2. One, that it meets the intent of the Build 2 regulations. 2, that it conforms with the comp plan and the adopted policies. 3, that it does not substantially negatively alter the character defining street wall or establish a Build 2 pattern that is not harmonious with the existing built context. 4, the change in percentage of building that occupies the Build 2 area or increased setback does not negatively impact pedestrian access, comfort, or safety. And 5, the key component that it area otherwise occupied by the building be converted to an outdoor amenity area, which the applicant has shown. And so that is the information related to the Build 2 request. I'm going to proceed, if the commission is okay with that, through the building massing request. There's a lot of images in this section, so I'm going to proceed through them rather quickly because I think the applicant will go into a little bit more detail. But the building massing request is related also to 2 of the buildings. So the requirements state that there must be a 15-foot setback between the 13th and 20th stories. Between the 3rd and 7th stories, there must be a 15-foot setback for buildings that are between 13 and 20 stories in height. And so this is relevant to two of the buildings, the 2 towers. The north tower will not have any setback on the facade facing South Street, but they do have some other articulation and a material change, which I'll note on the exhibits coming up. And then the South Tower also has material changes and a 3-foot step back, and a 25-foot setback, meaning the building location from the street, that they are proposing as an alternative. So again, just to frame this out, Tower 1, the building fronting South Street, is the first part of this request. Tower 2, the building facing Salisbury Street, is the second part. So I'm just going to run through these rather quickly. This is the elevation of that north tower facing Salisbury. So no step back on the north side, but there is a material change there. This is the east elevation at the corner facing Salisbury, and there is a step back on that side. This just shows kind of a more three-dimensional look at what that facade along South Street will look like and Salisbury. These images show step backs that exist, one on the east, which you already saw along Salisbury, but also what they are referring to as the main step back on the south side of the building, which is internal to the site. And so this is an image showing that step back. So that exists internal to the site away from South Street. This is another image just on the reverse side showing that same step back. This is the sort of western elevation, just internal to the block again, that other side opposite of Salisbury. That elevation shown in 3 dimensions. So now just going to walk through quickly the building massing requests related to the south tower, which in this image is the tower to the left. And in this image, that's shown to the right. These are, I apologize, got a little mixed up with my slides, but these are just showing some additional renderings, which do show both of the towers. The north tower shown here is at the top of the image, south tower shown to the right. The north tower here is shown to the left, again with that internal step back, south tower shown at the top of the screen. This is just a street level, further detailed rendering. This is that intersection between South and Salisbury, so it gives you a little bit better sense of the material change along South Street and that facade, which again will not have a step back along South, but does have that material change. There is a step back along Salisbury, which you can see. And it's sort of zoomed in version at the ground level along Salisbury. And then if you were to proceed down Salisbury towards the south tower, that intervening drive, which leads to the internal amenity space and the apartment in the rear. And here's where I meant to pick up earlier. Just walk through the request related to tower number 2 now. So the south tower shown on the right of both of these images. So this is the elevation along Salisbury Street. So there is a 3-foot step back and again, a material change. Here's a 3-dimensional look at that specific facade. And here is the opposite side, internal to the block. Here is the north elevation, also internal to the block. And also the setback, the elevation along Kinley Street. So this is again an area where they're not proposing a setback or step back, but that there is a material change on that elevation as well. And just wanted to run through those images just to show again some of the other content that they provided. This is looking south along Salisbury. And this just gives an internal view of the amenity space. And just to orient again, to the left is that north tower, and to the top of the screen is that south tower. And that Salisbury Street intervening drive between the two towers. So for building massing, there is a separate set of findings. The first two, very similar to that for build two, that meets the intent of the regulations and conforms with the comp plan. 3 is that the alternate uses a change in building materials to mimic a change in wall plane. The most substantial and durable building materials are located at the bottom floors of the building. 4, that if the approved alternate proposes a building setback behind the sidewalk in lieu of a required step back, the resulting open space includes public amenities such as seating areas, trees, and landscaping, or outdoor dining. And 5, that the building contains architectural treatments for delineating the base, middle, and top of the building. So that does conclude my portion of the presentation. I know the applicant has a number of other slides to show. I'm happy to try and answer any questions. If not, I'm turning it over to the applicant.
Thank you, Keegan. Any questions from the commission at this time? Staff?
Is that roadway or the roadways internal to the site? Are those going to be public streets or are those private drives?
It is my understanding those will be private drives.
Okay.
But I will verify that, and if I'm incorrect, I will let you know.
Go ahead and turn it over to the applicant, Ms. Maddox.
Okay, hello, I'm here again. Now on behalf of Dominion Realty Partners, the developer of Salisbury Square. On the line with me today are Robert Cox, AIA, the project architect, Ken Thompson, ASLA, landscape architect, and Sean Clemens, also AIA, all of J. Davis Architects. So first slide, please, or next slide, please. This just generally gives you a layout, and you'll see it, as Keegan mentioned, it's kind of on the south end of the downtown proper area. You'll see what I call the Memorial Auditorium Complex to the right or to the east. We're just across Salisbury Street from that. And this is a project between South Street, Salisbury Street, and Kindley Street. And it also has some frontage on South McDowell Street, although the South McDowell parcel 4, is not a part of this phase. And so that will be for future development. And I should note that this request was filed as an administrative alternate under the UDO in effect when the site plan was initially submitted. And the required findings for an administrative alternate are very similar, but somewhat different than those for the design alternate under the current UDO. And as Keegan mentioned, there are 2 distinct requests being made today, both for administrative alternates. The first is for an administrative alternate to the build to requirements in urban general frontage along Kindley Street. And, I think really for both of these requests, the development is very focused on the pedestrian realm. And I think you'll see that both of the site layouts and the architecture provide lots of amenities that will address the required findings for both requests. And this is, as you can see, a pretty complex project. So I'm going to lean heavily on our design experts here. And my first witness here will be Ken Thompson, landscape architect, to go through the components of the build to administrative alternate requested. Ken?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'll forewarn you in advance, I am working from remotely in a place that has some rather loud clock, so I apologize in advance. The current slide, number 43, is the site plan that was submitted, that's currently been submitted to the city. It divides the property up into 4 parcels. As you can see noted, 1 is the north tower, 2 is the south tower, and 3 is the parking deck wrapped with the apartments. Lot 4 is just going to be vacant for now and to be determined later. Going through the process, when we did the primary street determination, believe it or not, West Street and Kindly Street became primary streets, and Salisbury Street was not is not a primary street. It's a side street. So it kind of put us, from your a person's perspective, you would think these two, South and Salisbury, would be primary streets. And you can see, obviously, we would have no problem making primary build to on lot 2, because the building, takes up the whole street, and Kindly Street's just kind of, a side street at this point in time, and eventually, go through to Martin Luther King. But at this point in time, it's just a side street. And our focus was, have the buildings on South and Salisbury Street. So Kindly is kind of being the side street, and it's curved. It's difficult to get the building up, 70% of the building into that first 20 feet, especially, when you're dealing with a square parking deck wrapped with apartments. Let's see. I think the slides I have for this are a little farther down. I think we got ours in our presentation was set up opposite of staff's presentation. So
yeah.
Maybe I'll just use the, kind of got me a little off track. I apologize. If we could go to slide 39, this sets a perspective, but
If you could just let me know when to stop. I'm sorry, the presentations are combined, so I don't have the exact number.
Yeah, I think we could use that one.
No.
Again, I apologize.
The previous one.
Previous one. That's Kindly Street one there. So what we've tried to do is incorporate outdoor amenity areas along the public street face that would, one, define it, and as well, try to pull the pedestrian into the site. We have planted street walls on both sides, or planted areas behind seat walls on both sides, which accommodate some seating. The sidewalk is wide in those areas beyond the required 14 feet. And if we can go to a site plan now. And Keegan, it might actually be in yours, be part of the presentation. There was a aerial color rendering.
Yes.
Be helpful.
Is this helpful? Or Perfect. Is it another slide? Okay.
No, that'll work out fine. So you can see along that street face how we've incorporated those two outdoor amenity areas. And the outdoor amenity area to the left or the west of the access drive, the internal private street, is used to bring the pedestrian into our internal open space that'd be open to the public. We look at it as a gathering area, and I think Robert will give you some more information on that during his presentation. But we feel that what we've tried to do here can accomplish and meet the 5 findings, and that it defines the street face, it adds amenity area for the public, and it is also an entrance into our internal open space. I don't have any further comments. I'll turn it back over to Isabel unless someone has any questions for me.
And I would just, Keegan, if we could go to I think it's the last slide in our deck, just to recap the findings. And I apologize for the slides being kind of mixed up. I set this up to go with massing first and then the build to. And so when Keegan did it in the reverse order, I changed it too. So that's sorry for the confusion that caused. So just to go quickly through this request and sort of look at it with regard to the findings, as we said that Tower 2, the building will only occupy 33% of the primary street frontage along Kindley or Kindly, rather than 70. And the apartment building, lot 3, will only occupy 49% rather than the required 70. But in both cases, we feel like we meet the intent. We do have proposed buildings within the build to range along South Street and Salisbury Street, but the curve along Kindley sort of makes it really difficult to achieve a 70% building frontage along that route. However, we do think we fill that street frontage with some good pedestrian amenities. Second, it does conform with the comprehensive plan. The policies that we would call out are, placemaking, reinforcing the urban pattern, scale and design of new commercial development, pedestrian-friendly development, and ensuring pedestrian comfort and convenience. Does not substantially negatively alter the character-defining street. We believe this is consistent with the building orientations along the relevant streets. We're trying to move parking away from the streets, locating the proposed building closer to the roads, and creating urban outdoor space along all these streets to improve the street character. Fourth is the change in percentage of building that occupies the build to area does not negatively impact pedestrian access, comfort, and safety. In fact, we believe the change actually improves pedestrian safety and comfort. And because we do provide, some green areas, some seating areas, some outdoor dining opportunities. And finally, the site that would otherwise have been occupied by building is converted to outdoor amenity area, which, as you could see from the drawings, we have some nice outdoor amenity areas along Kindley or Kindly, and also that piece that draws you into the center courtyard, we think also enhances that outdoor amenity area. So that's our concluding our presentation on the build to, and now we'll jump over to the presentation on the building massing request for a administrative design alternate for the building massing requirements. And there's a requirement for building step backs in certain locations, which we don't technically require or comply with, but I think we do other things. And I'm going to call on Robert Cox, architect, to give a presentation on the building massing. Robert?
Great. Hi. Thanks, Isabel. Yeah. So, yeah. I'm not sure where my slides are in this deck. Isabel, do you know where the beginning of?
Well, why don't we go back to the beginning of Keegan's presentation, which had the full deck, and you can just, ask him to advance those. I think that may be the best thing.
Yeah, there's a slide that shows like the full, like sort of all of downtown with some arrows drawn on it. I don't know.
That's at the very beginning, I think.
Okay, great.
So I do know which slide you're talking about. I did not include that, but I can pull it up if you bear with me one moment.
Okay.
If that would be helpful.
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay. Sorry, everyone. Just bear with me one moment.
While you're doing that, Keegan, let me go ahead and ask the commission while it's fresh in our mind if there's any questions for the applicant on the build to before we get into the massing. Questions on that?
Okay. I do have, I believe, that PowerPoint that was being referred to. If that would be helpful, I can pull it up now.
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay. Are you all seeing this?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so he does that. Great.
Oh,
Did it go away?
no, it's back.
Okay, sorry. Just trying to make it full screen for everyone.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, so just to, again, to sort of reorient here, just with our site being at this south corner or south in Salisbury, it being at the edge of the original Christmas plan, the idea that Raleigh has downtown Raleigh has grown around the big idea of axes in connecting institutions and public space. And so our project, or the idea, is to continue and amplify that relationship, bringing more public space to the end of the Fayetteville Street corridor. Next slide. And so the placement and orientation of the buildings makes room for open space, in effect extending the pedestrian experience of the Memorial Auditorium campus. The resulting park is intended to honor the North Carolina Association of Educators, the current owners of the site. And so this relationship of arts and education in turn just informs the architecture, the language of folded paper being the medium of creativity and learning. Next slide. So the arrangement of the site, as you've seen, is Tower 1 with the primary retail at the ground floor, Tower 2 with secondary retail at the entrance to the site, and workforce housing wrapping parking deck and facing Kinley Street. Next slide. And this is a view of a rendering of that intended design. Next slide. With Tower 1's massing, we have multiple setbacks here on Salisbury. There's a 15-foot setback from the right-of-way, a 15-foot step back from the ground floor, and embedded in that is a 12-foot terrace at the second floor. That's accentuated by the material change of a base that is this masonry, durable sort of masonry material that has a sort of regular rhythm to it, and that is sort of developed and fade or transitions to a folded plane of glass above, and then that is in turn topped by a metal panel crown. Other features: a 16-foot setback at the crown, step back at the crown, and a 15-foot balcony slot at the corners. You can see that here off to the right and also off to the left. So that's a bit of relief at either corner as well. Next slide. This is the southeast axon, sort of looking or standing in the southeast corner. Again, we've got the balcony slot at the corner, the aforementioned setbacks and step backs along Salisbury, and then the primary step back, which is overlooking the park. So this is our logic, is that we're really trying to celebrate and enliven the public space in the center by having this major setback overlooking that space, and also facing south, so it's a nice sunny space. Next slide. This is the other view on South Street. Again, seeing the material change from the base of a masonry base up to a glass body. Next slide. And just one more view from the southwest. Next slide. Tower 2 is again the folded plane language, where it is these planes that are resting on a base of concrete. So we have the setback, a few moves down at the base, a loggia that 15-foot loggia that extends to the street. Along the street, we have a max 25-foot setback from the right-of-way that would include a planted area within that sort of triangle that you're seeing there. The base, again, is a concrete, and the panels above, or the body above, is a mixture of metal panel and glass. And then those fins that you see along, or that sort of appear at north and south end, in effect turn into the crown, especially as seen from the ground floor, which you'll see later on. Next slide. And just looking again from the south, the planted area at the street that we've mentioned about the build to line. So you'll see some closer up looks at that as well. Yeah, and again, just the material changes and the different the different components of the building. Next slide. And this is looking west, or sorry, looking east, the side of the building that looks onto the park. Next slide. And finally, the southwest axon. Again, the same logic of having a major step back here, looking out onto the park. Next slide. So these renderings have some marks illustrating some of the setbacks and stepbacks and other moves that I've described. So as you can see, again, 12-foot terrace, a 15-foot setback from the right-of-way, and a 15-foot step back from the ground floor up to this upper level.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Tower 2, you could see past that, again, that sort of crown that I mentioned, and the sort of tripartite composition. Next slide. Just a zoomed in view that you saw before. This is again you could sort of see the setback, the step back a little bit more closely, and how the entrance, the inside of the fold would look. Next slide. This is the view from Memorial Auditorium, looking along the private street to the parking deck and workforce housing. This is lined with these two loggias on either side, so that's something sort of responding to the loggia or colonnade over a memorial. And we're working to limit car use along this street, potentially letting it have a Woolnerf street effect. So, imagine even more sort of planting and, more bikes and whatnot along here. Next slide. This is the southeast corner, and so it's a little bit closer view of that amenity or the maintenance of the street wall using public amenity. If you can see there's some seating, and we'll see that in plan in a bit. And again, just sort of heavily planting this, letting it be a more friendly and sort of softer edge that acts as a gateway into our site, into the park area. Next slide. And this is the public amenity space at the gateway. This slide has a little bit better indication of what's going on over at the workforce side, looking into the park, and with seating and lighting. Next slide. And then finally, a final view is the northwest corner of the Tower 1. We're hoping to put the bike room at the corner here, and so letting that sort of activate that corner of the ground floor on this side along South Street. Next slide. And then this is a rendered site plan from our landscape department. You could see a little bit more detail of what we're hoping to put in there. Yeah, just really want to sort of celebrate this internal public space, and so hoping to sort of maybe have an educational component to it. But this would be like I began with, hopefully an extension of the public space that you can see off to the right, the Memorial Auditorium campus. Next slide. This is the detail of the workforce housing, what we would do here. Again, accent paving, seat walls, seating, grove with festoon lighting. This is efforts have been made to follow the street while also wrapping the parking deck. So hopefully hoping to strike a good balance between a street edge and something that wraps parking deck and not leaving too much of that exposed. And then next slide. And final slide for me, the south side of Tower 2 along Kinley. We've got a landscape buffer with built-in seat walls and raised landscape beds, accent paving, and hoping to let this act as a sort of continuation of our park and our public space that sort of spills out onto the south side of the site. So that's what I had prepared. I don't know if y'all have any questions or like to go back to any of the slides.
I appreciate that presentation, and I appreciate you starting out with kind of the overall site because I think it makes a little more sense now with connection to what we call memorial.
Yeah.
And interacts with the rest of the site as well.
Yes, and I appreciate Robert's presentation as well. I'd like to just kind of wrap up our presentation if I can. I think Robert told you a lot of really great stuff about this exciting project, but I just want to go through the findings required for the administrative alternate for a building massing alternate. If you can go, Keegan, to I think have it as slide 12, which goes through the findings of, or you may have the findings listed in your materials as well. I just wanted to kind of go through those. I can read through them if we don't have them up on the screen. But the first one of those is the building meets the intent of the ordinance. And the intent here is to manage the impact of tall buildings located close to the street, which, you know, the build-tos make us be close to the street, and yet we want to manage the impacts. And I think we've done a great job here of managing those impacts to, you know, as Mr. Cox and staff have confirmed, this finding has been satisfied via multiple setbacks, step backs, pedestrian areas, and material changes. And I think we've gone through those in pretty good detail. The second finding is, does the requested alternate address the goals and policies of the comp plan? Again, staff, I think, confirmed that in its staff report. And I think I'll just run through those policies that we believe we do conform to. Placemaking, compact development, reinforcing the urban pattern, pedestrian-friendly development, integration of travel modes, bicycle and pedestrian mobility, sidewalk requirements, pedestrian, bicycle network connections, pedestrian network, surface parking alternatives, mixed-use redevelopment, building orientation, activating the street, improving streetscape design, management of sidewalk. I think we've hit a lot of those policies very well. The third finding is, if the administrative alternate uses a change in building materials to mimic change in wall plane, the most substantial and durable material should be located on the first floor. In this case, Mr. Cox has testified about the masonry base for Tower 1 and the concrete base for Tower 2, conforming to that finding. Fourth finding is, if the administrative alternate proposes a setback in lieu of a step back, resulting open space includes public streets such as seating, public areas such as seating or outdoor dining or landscaping. I think you've seen a lot of, you know, we don't have the exact step backs called out for the, in the UDO, but we do have some step backs and we do have some setbacks, and we have lots of public areas where there are seating and dining opportunities, a lot of landscaping, as you've seen from the pretty pictures, and you've heard from both of our experts testifying. Finally, the final finding is the building contains architectural treatments for delineating base, middle, and top. And Mr. Cox has testified about the different elements of each building. And I think staff has also confirmed that we have satisfied that finding. So with that, I'll conclude our presentation, and certainly all of us are available for any questions that the commission has. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maddox. I understand there are no other applicants signed up to speak for or against, so I'll go ahead and open it for if there's questions you have at this time for either the building massing or the build to. Questions for the applicant?
I got a question. Those last couple of landscape renderings that we saw were a good bit more detailed on the amenity areas, and in a couple cases a little bit different than the other plans and what was submitted. Are any elements of those more detailed plans still kind of being adjusted, changed, or is what was presented there kind of baked into the final design?
So yeah, what you those last couple of slides were the most progressed that we've gotten, because we've only it is so it is heading in that direction, and I think this is we'll definitely be including the elements that we've that we sort of listed off, and yeah, so I think that end of the site is pretty looking fairly firm.
I'd like to add, those were the slides that I was looking for when I was talking about the build to. So they are the latest generation and, higher end design, and that is the direction we're going towards. Thank you.
Can you all respond to the original question somebody had regarding the roadways, road network? Would those be private streets?
Yes, the internal's private.
In one of those renderings, it appeared that there's a little bit of a change of material, at least with the road that was kind of aligned with the front of Memorial. Are you guys looking at that, changing that material, maybe closing that road off at some point?
Yes, the north street, internal street that goes across the top of the park. I believe in that yes, that's one. We are hoping to limit car use on that, and hopefully do a separate type of, or a different type of material on that, so that again it could hopefully work more as a Wooner type street. We need to make sure that that's that is workable with the traffic, but that is our goal.
Yeah, the developer would like to make it more pedestrian and be able to close it off for events, so that would increase the amenity area, the amount of area that we use for an event, while still maintaining ingress and egress from the deck.
Right.
Keegan, can you go back to maybe one of the renderings kind of showing the South Street facade? Just kind of looking at the building massing. I mean, do we have some heights, that I think we're looking, code's looking for something between the 3rd and 7th floors. Both Salisbury and South Street. What levels are those? I can kind of see it on this South Street. It's like it's 2nd to 3rd floor. It's back out 3rd floor.
Yep. Sorry. What was the question?
Question is, the UDO talks about position. What happens between the 3rd and the 7th floor?
Oh,
for step backs. I'm wondering what level, what these kind of building materials are. What your base, your middle, top, of course. The base, is that at the 2nd floor level?
That is the gray is a concrete that would be at the top of that is the 2nd floor. So that is what is orange is the beginning of the 2nd floor.
You all looking through some of these renderings and just looking at, it looks like there were some shadows done on these. I mean, is that realistic? Have you done any shadow studies or light studies?
Yes. I mean, these shadows are accurately placed within the software. Yeah, but they are. We are, because we have a lot of open space on the south side. We're getting, it's essentially a would be casting shadows on ourselves in the morning and sort of across the back of Memorial in the afternoon.
One of the interesting things we have seen though is that just basically because of the size of the buildings, because they're both about 20 stories tall, that the step back notion, if you think about coming up, the 3 stories, whatever, stepping back 15 feet, the mass of the building doesn't really change much. The building's quite tall and it's going to cast a pretty long shadow, pretty much no matter what. And so in terms of the goal of the UDO, of getting light and air to the street, what we've got here, it doesn't really have a material impact on what would happen if we were by right.
Correct.
Questions from the committee?
Yeah, I've got one more. On South Street, I don't think I caught what the setback is from the property line along that face.
So that is hugging the right of way pretty closely there.
I can answer that one.
Okay.
It is pulled back far enough from the right of way. I believe it's in the range of 4 or 5 feet along South Street. The ground floor doors do not open into the right of way. We trying to site the building. There's a radial right of way line at the intersection. So we've been trying to, how do we get the building up in the build twos and get it close to the right of way line when we have this curve, and that's why I think there's some chamfers on the corners of the buildings there, but it is approximately 5 feet setback from South Street right away, and we are dedicating right away on South Street approximately 3 to 5 feet, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, and part of that, Ken, is both that orange mass it's sort of a reverse step back. It pops out, and of course then you can see there the storefront openings along the street are also set back from the masonry face, so giving us more room at the sidewalk than we would probably otherwise have.
Yeah, I think this facade is the one that I'm struggling with the most. I guess for a couple of reasons. I think I'm piecing together all the other parts for the build to and the massing for the south tower with the increased setback instead of a step back along Salisbury Street. But this one, I mean, the intent of the building massing is with the step back, is to reduce the perceived scale of the building. And by setting it back just a few feet and then popping out the second floor on up, almost feels like it's doing the opposite. So instead of breaking down the scale, it seems like it's enhancing the scale or making it more significant on the street edge. So maybe you can help me out and explain maybe in your own words. So when somebody asks us later, how did this get approved? Like, what went through your mind when you approved this design? How does this meet the intent of breaking down the perceived scale of a building along the street front?
Yeah. Can you go over to go ahead maybe 5 or 6 slides to the rendering where you can see look at it from the
Yes, I'm happy to do that. I think it might actually be the presentation that you were running through.
Right.
So give me one moment. I can
Well-
stop sharing and then share that screen.
Okay, cool. That might help to sort of understand it a little bit better in 3D. I think that the overall idea is the sort of interplay of the this ground floor solid and this masonry base that is sort of interplaying with this glass folded plane, and so the sort of a visual relief comes in the sort of dynamism of that sort of mass emerging out of the folded plane. So you have this significant topography, right, that goes down to about 10 feet from one end of the building to the other. So the building sort of is climbing and sort of soaring up to the top of this this corner. So it's a response to that particular condition. And then I think in terms of sort of scale questions, it's the 12-foot terrace. I think that interplay between that and the sidewalk and the sort of pedestrian improvements along there, I think greatly, would make the pedestrian feel comfortable and sort of at ease in that space. I don't know if anybody else on my team wants to add anything else.
I would just say that I think that relief on the lower levels really has more of an impact on the people walking down the street than a step back, 7 or 8 floors up.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Isabel. And I think given that, like we were talking about a minute ago, thinking about the rhythm of the masonry openings there along street level, and then, something else, it's a little tough to read here. You can kind of get a sense of it maybe from the scale figures, but that base, even though, that's really only the first or second floor where it's stepping back, like I was mentioned a minute ago, there's like 10, 12 feet of elevation grade drop there along South Street. And so that step back is really happening, 25, 30 feet up. So it's, in terms of the pedestrian environment there at street level, I think we've done a nice job of breaking that down and making that a nice place to be. And like I said, you're on the north side, so you're sort of going to be in shadow regardless. But having the ability to widen the street there a little bit, give a little bit more space to the sidewalk, and then as a pedestrian, you're not as aware, particularly down there at the would be the far corner in this view. You're not quite as aware of what's happening up above your head. You're more focused on street level.
Right.
How far, to Chris's point, and I think you sort of made the comment where the curtain wall steps back out over the sidewalk space, and it sort of gave this impression of a canopy type, almost a little bit of a tunnel effect through there. But what is that right there where your cursor is, just below that terrace, the top of that first floor at that terrace level? How far towards South Street is that curtain wall from that terrace wall in the face of that masonry?
So how much is the curtain wall projecting past the masonry at the
not vertically, how far does it project past, but horizontally towards South Street? How far out does it sit?
It's fairly close, just with I'd say within a foot or so. It's not a huge overhang. It's sort of there.
I don't see any structure there to support it, and I don't think you're trying to cantilever that out at all. It seems like it's probably, to your point, fairly limited to about the distance or thickness of the curtain wall. That's probably spandrel there, not actually glass, right?
Yes, that would be spandrel there. That gets beyond. Yes, yeah. So that would be spandrel as it passes the masonry point.
Yeah, and I think the step back along Salisbury Street and just the increased setback, the various things that are going on with that entrance and the canopy, those all they work, and it feels like that is meeting the intent of the code. It's kind of that other end. It's the west end along South Street that I continue to question. There was another rendering in the slide deck looking from that northwest corner back down along South Street. Can you find that one, Keegan?
Yeah, that should be the last rendering. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So,
I'm just,
for some scale reference, up here at the very top, you can kind of see the two people. That would be a balcony. So the sort of that kind of helps.
I don't know. I'll be curious to hear what my fellow commission members have to say about this corner.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I just had kind of the same reaction. It's just, I think it looks nice in the renderings and everything, but when you get down to kind of justifying it with the findings, I think it becomes a little difficult. Knowing that, it's pushing out instead of going in. So I agree with what you said, Chris.
Last moment for questions before I close it. Bring to the table for consideration. All right, being none, I'm going to close the hearing and open it up for deliberation for the commission. Where do we want to start? So we've got a couple things. We've got a couple things. We've got the build to, which is really for two different things, and we also have building massing, which is for two different buildings. So we can kind of break them down. You do the build to all as one if people are feeling pretty comfortable. Maybe we start with just the build to. Get your overall thoughts with the build to, if that's something that we all feel pretty comfortable with, or if there's one building that is bothering anybody, or just let me know your thoughts with that.
And I think in my opinion, overall, I think they did a really good job with the, with incorporating that outdoor space or outdoor amenity space for both of the buildings.
Yeah, I appreciate the extra detail on the updated renderings, with a lot of extra elements there to make that more of an amenity space. And yes, Salisbury Street is, intuitively the primary street, and all of those streets are curved except for South Street. So I think the build to makes sense.
Yeah, agreed. I think those final site plans that Keegan found answered a lot of the questions that I had about what those amenity areas were to make up the difference for the build to. So I'm in agreement with both of the build to requests for both towers, or both buildings.
I agree. I like I'm glad that we found the intent is there. Can look through the findings. sounds like everybody's kind of on board with both. So the findings are, number one, the approved alternate meets the intent of the Build 2 regulations. Is the approved alternate does not substantially negatively alter the character defining street wall, establish a Build 2 pattern that's not harmonious with the existing built. Change in percentage of building that occupies the Build 2 area. Free setback does not impact pedestrian access, comfort, or safety. Site area that is converted out. Section 1. So, you know, those 10 of those have been met. Going back to number 2, the approved alternate conforms with the comprehensive plan, city plans, policies to substantiate that. A couple 7.4, OU 2.1. 5.1 is
Yeah. UD 4.1.
box. Motion to approve. Second.
I'll second.
Any, I guess let's just let's see if I can get it. Let's just go ahead and do our raise hand vote. Favor? That's unanimous. Any opposed? Okay. So really we're down to building massing. So anxious to hear any more thoughts. I have the same concern across that you do, Chris, with South Street. I think they did a nice job on the south side of the building on South Street. It kind of, showing that it can be done, but I do feel like it's kind of doing a little bit of the opposite of what the intent is. It's hard to get. I think the other building, Salisbury, I think meets the intent with the kind of the angle, step back there, the way it meets the intent of that. I think I can get through that one. So to get any other additional thoughts from you all.
Chris, you brought up kind of the, maybe what almost felt like that tunnel effect, on there. I'm curious where you sit with that, what you think, knowing that even though, there's not really that step back, and to your point, actually the curtain wall coming out a little further, albeit not very much. What are your thoughts? How do you think that's going to feel to the pedestrian?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think of it as creating a tunnel as if something is coming out over you. I don't think there's not enough of a projection there to make it feel like that. I think they were trying to propose that a change in building materials was going to give the effect of having a step back. That's, I think, what they were trying to get through. But, when I read the intent where it says, the intent is to manage the impact of tall buildings located near the public right-of-way, and that step backs are intended to provide access to light on the north side, so you're only going to get so much light on the north side. Mitigate winds, produce a consistent street wall, and visually reduce the perceived scale of the building to avoid the canyon effect. I just change the materials from masonry to glass. I don't know if that does it to reduce the perceived scale of the building. I mean, you're still going to perceive a wall along that face of the street as you walk or drive down South Street.
There was, at the very beginning of the presentation, they made the comment that contrary to, I think, what you would believe, Salisbury was not the primary street, frontage street, and that it became a side street. Does it? And I don't recall if I heard, does that same apply to South Street? And if it does that make a difference in what the
Can you
UDO
help us out on
requires?
that? Because I thought it was only along a public right of way. A street was a public right of way. But
So it wouldn't matter if it was primary or secondary.
And which requirement are you referring to? This step back in general?
Yes.
Yeah, the step back applies to any street facing facade. The build to is the requirement that applies differently across streets, whether they're primary or side. Does that answer the question?
It does. Thank you.
I mean, and that move is so significant to pull the curtain wall out past the face of the masonry base below. I mean, the design seems fairly well developed at this point. I'm not even sure what suggestions I could offer that might help assuage my concerns.
Yeah, that's my concern too, is, I think with this, I don't mind maybe separating this into two votes, for each building, and giving them the opportunity to come up with some better language. But I want to be able to, if we did that, I would want to be able to give them some guidance on what we're looking for. I don't know what that is right off. I agree. I mean, I keep reading the intent, and if it was a portion of that building facade that's done it, I mean, I've seen that on other projects where it's a portion of the building facade that does something similar. It goes straight up. There's one thing, but it being the whole side of that facade that does that, majority of the facade that does that, South Street, it's a little bit harder to get using the perceived scale of the building.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody disagrees or can justify in their minds why it makes sense with the intent, please, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think we have 6 voting members. I think we need 5, I believe, for pass. My suggestion is that we break this out into 2. Well, let's talk about the other building. Let's not talk about South Street. Let's talk about Salisbury. How does everybody feel about Salisbury Street? Building mousing along there. I mean, it is still a plain going straight up, but it does, I think, meet the intent with having kind of that angling in of that facade. I feel like I can get that through.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, between the increased setbacks, the architectural character, the canopies, the actual setback with that terrace at the second floor. I mean, I think I can get back or get on board with the setback or the intent of the setback for all of the other streets.
Yeah, I agree.
And this is Tower 2, is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
Get the findings for.
Yes. Give me one moment. Let me see if they're in this deck, and if not, I can pull them up.
The approved alternate meets the intent of the building massing regulations. The approved alternate conforms. The approved alternate uses a change in building materials to mimic a change in wall plan. A substantial and durable material meets location at the bottom, which it does. If the approved alternate proposes a building setback behind the sidewalk in lieu of a required step back, resulting open space includes public amenities such as seating areas, trees, and this. The building contains architectural treatments, base, middle, and top. So, the approved alternate and number 2 conform city plan policies. Justify that. Say it was street. UD 2.1.
Mm-hmm. 2.3.
So I propose to approve Tower 2 as discussed. I guess that's my motion. Approve Tower 2.
That was second.
Who was the second?
That was Marcus.
Marcus. Motion and a second. Do we have any other thoughts, comments? And vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is that unanimous? Okay. So that just leaves really, what is that called? Tower 1, I guess, on the South Street side. Sounds like there's some questions. I don't know if votes are there quite yet. I would suggest that we hold off till our next regular meeting. It's just my suggestion on that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I think it would be helpful to get, any kind of concrete guidance and I would like Robert Cox's input on this because he's going to have to tweak anything up that needs to be changed, which I don't think is a minimal tweak.
Right. And actually, if you don't mind pulling that image back up, that'd be helpful.
This is a hard one. This is one of the hardest ones I've had, schematics. I think it is because it does appear to be so far along, but I think what we're having is just a hard time finding a way to meet
Well,
the intent.
if I could, there was a comment I apologize, I don't recall who made it, but somebody mentioned that we were able to do it on the south side, but not on the north side. And I think maybe it's important to kind of keep in mind that the reason, it's on the south side is because we could, right? The south side is where the swimming pool is. It's where the amenity deck is for the residents and those kinds of things. And as we were talking about a minute ago, on the north side, it's in shadow, and so there's not really the opportunity or the need to step back, particularly there, sort of in that middle half there, kind of on the northwest side. But where we were able to there on the northeast corner and on the far southeast corner, we were able to do those step backs in there. And like I said, then we are stepping back. We step back from the glass plane to the masonry, and then again from the masonry to the storefront. On the order of, I think Ken mentioned ago, it was about 3 feet in total there at the street level, and then about 5 feet back from the required line. So I guess just sort of in light of that, how is we're having a little bit of trouble on our side. I think maybe just understanding how this is different than what we're doing on Salisbury Street and why that's acceptable and this isn't.
Well, I think the biggest difference is that on the Salisbury Street outside that south tower, you've got the 25-foot step back there at the on one side of the building.
The setback.
Yeah, setback. And I also think the terrace at the second floor helps as well.
What is behind if you were to continue? I guess I think what we're looking for, and everybody else jump in here somewhere, is some level of step back, somewhere along that space. I think we're all sort of understanding that's probably not going to happen anywhere between floors 3 and 7, like it's pointed out. But I think we're trying to be flexible and helping some form of setback or step back happen somewhere along that elevation. So if that terrace area were to continue across where that curtain wall comes down, is that I mean, that to me feels like you give some level of step back.
So essentially what you're saying is the diagonal, if that was pulled further west, further to the right, where there's where the terrace is extended around.
I think, in my opinion, you get far closer to the intent of the UDO by doing that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how far that glass of the terrace that sits back from the main curtain wall, how far back is that set back from the face of the curtain wall?
On the South Street side, not much, just like maybe a foot. So it's the most step is actually along. Is on facing Salisbury Street.
So it's not a terrace in the sense that, understanding that it could be narrow, but it's not like even really enough space to walk there.
Mm.
Correct. Yeah, you can see it in the view from the northeast. If you look down on it, you can see it's just about a foot on that side, on the South Street. There you go.
Ah, there you go. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That pretty much shows the facade, though, the whole facade. It's pretty facade straight up.
Yeah. And this is not as recent as the one you were looking at just a moment ago, but
If you peel back some of that curtain wall, some or all of it, would that do anything to get you there?
Like I said, like drag the diagonal further to the right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to say. You know, I'm empathetic because I don't want to design it, but I don't want to just do something just because it's a code required thing, right? You look cool when it's a finished product. So I don't know what it'll look like if it gets pulled back farther. I think it'd be worth looking at. Could that piece that's a foot deep, could it be a little more than that? Does that work with your building plan? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying. I don't want to go down the path of asking you to pull that terrace back 5-10 feet, understanding the significant structural implications that or create a big step back there. That's not where I'm trying to go with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or is there a void or something somewhere else in that big massive glass facade? Is there?
That's what I was gonna say. Is there something
break
between?
That up? I mean, then I wouldn't mind the piece sticking down as much if it broken up between the 3rd and the 7th floor somewhere. If there's void taken out of that or something, it just seems like a big sheet of flatness right now.
Void or materiality or some other element between 2 and 20.
Yeah. I don't know how the rest of my colleagues would feel about this, but I think a material change that would break up the single the single plane could make some sense. Something that might speak to the balcony slot at the corner.
Yeah, maybe you see some of that same kind of facade that you have down below that, at the 2nd floor, come up. I don't want to design it, but just trying to figure out a way to. It's a sticky situation because I don't want to make, a building that's totally cool something less than because to try to meet the intent of the code, but trying to figure out a way to kind of do both, make it cool and I don't know if that gives you enough
Corey, I
guidance.
agree. I mean, I actually like the diagonal piece. It's just above it.
So let me ask the commission, I mean, what do you think about, I'll ask the applicant in a minute, if that's something you think you want to give them a little time. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, Corey. We've done that for some other projects too, and asked them to come back. And again, I would just reinforce reading the intent of that whole building massing section, and thinking about when we talk about it, how are we going to justify to ourselves and to everybody else in the city why we were able to approve it because it met the intent of the code. And I'm like you, Corey. I don't want to give suggestions and design it only to see, a month from now what it looks like, and then we all hate it.
That's right. Keegan, we have So our regular administrative alternate cases are actually in the middle, third Thursday. This one's a little different. Hold it off from the December meeting. So the next next meeting would be third Thursday in February. I know we're pretty, or it would be in 2 weeks. Well, let me ask Ms. Maddox. Well, let me ask you first, Keegan. Would we have enough time to get the materials and stuff back and get it into the system if it was 2 weeks out, or would push it off?
I don't believe 2 weeks is feasible, just because tomorrow is essentially our internal deadline to have materials sort of reviewed and uploaded to board docs. But the second meeting in February is certainly doable.
Yeah, I think the first meeting is really pretty jam-packed.
Yes.
So, okay, so let's, everybody's on board. Let's ask Ms. Maddox if that would be an acceptable solution for you all.
You know,
17th of February.
We're certainly disappointed not to get approval tonight, but it doesn't sound like we have a lot of options in terms of other meeting dates. Certainly, we'd love to get to the first meeting in February if we could. And I would want to just ask, and just the general question: do we think the board could see their way clear to approving this with the material change, so that we don't have a structural, change at this point?
I could, if there's a direct answer there.
I see one not. I heard one. It's hard to say. I mean, it's just really hard to say.
Yeah. I know. I hate to put you on the spot.
Yes.
I just
I'm
trying to
leaning towards yes.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's just something to study and see.
And I think it's everyone here is struggling just with interpreting the intent and feeling good about that. So if there are other specific pieces of the intent and interpreting that wording that you can nod to, that's what we're looking for.
Okay, so I move to have them come back on the 17th, meeting on the 17th of February. 17th of February. Vote on that. Make that a motion. Need to make that a motion. Second on that. I guess Keegan, do we need to make that a motion?
I think it would be helpful just for record keeping purposes in case anyone wants to check the minutes to figure out what happened, why it moved to another meeting.
So I move that we hold this, keep this open and have them come back on the 17th of February.
But point of clarification.
I'll second that.
Can I get a point of clarification? Do we have approval on the South Tower and the 2 build-to requests? They're good to go.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I move that we keep South Street facade tower, that portion of the build to hold it over until the 17th. See that on the 17th. Second.
Yeah, I'll second that. It's Chris.
Second. Favor. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you all. I appreciate you working with us on this. Do our best to, I'm happy to reach out, or if you want to work some stuff through Keegan, if you have any ideas prior to then, we to assist as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that closes our caseload for the evening. Other business. Just go through this really quick. So we still have our attorney on the call?
I'm here.
You are still here. Well, thank you, Miss Hill. Do you have any report?
No report from me.
Report for you. All right. And so really all I have for this evening is, well, let me ask you, Keegan. So our next meeting in 2 weeks, how is that looking? Caseload wise?
We only have one AAD case for that meeting, and most things should be finalized within the next day or so. In terms of noticing, and I think the agenda is already published for those who want to view it. And then there's also some other business items listed in addition to that AAD item.
Yeah, so instead of going through some of this tonight, I would like to, maybe at the next meeting, we can discuss the Sir Walter Raleigh Awards a little bit more. Really not a whole lot of information yet. Brittany Waddell with the city is going to be our contact. I haven't had a chance to reach out to her, start figuring out what so maybe we can talk about that in 2 weeks. Typically we have a year-end retreat. It's been kind of hard with this COVID thing. A lot of you probably don't even know that we have a year-end retreat. And we kind of get together. We talk about what we've done in the last year, what we would like to do differently, how things have gone. Get a report from the city about types of cases we've seen and kind of moving forward. So maybe we'll discuss that at the next meeting as well. That's all I'm really going to say about it at this point. It's just something that came to my mind today. So Sir Walter year end, and we can also talk about kind of our budget and just a little bit of ad, and we kind of started talking several months ago about things that we can do with prior to, I think, what spent by. So we need to start thinking about that as well. So we'll start getting those on the calendar to talk about in the future. And then I think all that's really left that I have are the minutes. If you've all had a chance to, it's from our December 2nd quasi-judicial meeting. Need to go ahead and review those and hopefully approve them so those can become part of the record. So we had the commission meeting along with the findings of fact and conclusions of laws, and had a chance. Do we have a motion to approve those?
Who here
How
was
much
at
to
that
approve?
meeting?
Did read them. Who was the motion?
I'll make the motion. It's Martha.
Made the motion. I'll second the motion. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay. So the minutes for the motion is adopted with unanimous voice vote, and the minutes and finding of facts and conclusion of law are approved as written. All right. Anybody else have anything else before we wrap this up?
Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year. And
Happy New Year.
I should have said at the beginning, but I don't know if everybody is aware that. So Keegan, welcome Keegan to our team.
Welcome, Keegan.
Keegan has been helping out with the planning commission and other. So we dragged him into this because he didn't have enough to do. So, but we appreciate you, Keegan, and all you're doing to kind of help us keep this rolling. Try to help you as much as we can.
Certainly. Thanks for having me and bearing with me. Hoping everything runs even more smooth than it did this evening for future meetings. And the long-term plan in terms of staffing has not firmly been decided, but I will be with you in the interim at the very least. And you may even see some other faces around presenting items if we need to recruit some other folks. But yeah, looking forward to assisting with these cases and getting to know you all a little bit better.
Great. Well, we appreciate it, Keegan. And you kind of saw tonight that this was, caseloads. That'll give you an idea. We had 2 cases tonight we had to discuss. That kind of tells you the time frame, what we typically get into. So that'll help you with our caseload in the future and start talking. I appreciate everybody's time tonight, hanging in there. And one other thing. So what I'd really like to do at our next meeting is have some nominations for the chair and the vice chair. Really would. And so if people would send me nominations, I'd be glad to take those and reach out to those people. If there's somebody that you'd like to nominate, I'd love to go ahead and pass the baton at some point, get the next person rolling and help them along. It's people. Sure as Candace would as well. So come with some nominations. I would love to have some nominations. I'd love to vote at our next meeting in 2 weeks, if possible. So get that in mind. If somebody wants to tackle it and wants to nominate themselves, that's fine as well. Reach out to me. So that's the last thing I'll say tonight. Anything else from anybody else? Going, gone. All right. I appreciate everybody. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keegan.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.